Jerry, 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 Jerry. What up, what up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm MoedotJ and we are locked in. Netflix dropped a two-part series of Jerry Springer, the documentary, and let me see what it says. It says, fight, camera, action. And if you were like me, we grew up watching Jerry Springer. We didn't know if it was real, if it was fake. We just knew when we got out of school, Jerry Springer was going to be on and we're going to watch it because, hey, sometimes you got to skip school to go watch Jerry Springer. And Jerry Springer went on from, I think, 92 to 2018. Obviously, it wasn't the same towards the end, but Jerry Springer is still something we grew up on, and reality TV spawned from this show here. Now, before we jump into this and we break down the first part of the Jerry Springer documentary, if you watch Jerry Springer, if you were at the house chanting and cheering, Jerry, Jerry, then hit your subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you get something every time I upload. Make sure you hit that like button, and we're going to try to push it this year to 100,000 subscribers. Forget 75,000. We'll get there when we get there. We aiming for 100. So help a brother out. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Let's jump into it. This is Jerry Springer, the limited series on Netflix, part 1. Starting off the documentary, they're basically explaining what the Jerry Springer show was about. Their show was all on the floor in front of a live audience. So if you didn't captivate the audience, then you weren't going to get the numbers. You weren't going to have a good show. And one thing we knew about Jerry Springer is whenever we watched it, whenever we flipped to that channel, we knew that it was about to be some wild and crazy kids, or should I say wild and crazy adults, doing the most outlandish stuff. And that's what Jerry Springer was built on. Reality television, the originator. Jerry Springer, little was known about him. The internet wasn't available like it was now, and if you did, it was AOL dial-up. So you definitely weren't about to get on there and waste your time looking up who was Jerry Springer. Now, he was the former mayor of Cincinnati, and he came to Chicago. Initially, when he came here, he was going to be a talk show host. And everyone was like, okay, who is he and why is he coming here? But that turned into being a talk show host at night and being a news anchor during the day. So he's just now getting his footing in Chicago, but little is known about him. So there's multiple producers that'll be on here, and also Robert Dominique. He's the head executive producer of the show. But right now what they're talking about is when you have a talk show, the magic number to reach is 2 million viewers. You tried to get that every episode. Now at this time, Oprah was leading by far, 12 million views, 14 million views. Jerry Springer was at the very bottom when these reports used to come out. So at this moment, Oprah definitely isn't even someone that they're thinking about competing with. But the original Jerry Springer show was in the middle of the nighttime, and it was elderly people. I'm talking 60 plus were watching. It was just dry. It was like a soap opera, but a real life soap opera talk show where nothing exciting is happening. Richard Dominique became the executive producer of the show because it was doing horribly. And as I mentioned, the crowd was typically between 60 and 90 years old. And since he came from the tabloid background, we know is whatever a captivating title is what's going to draw attention. So they would go out and they would look for some wild stuff. We got this toaster that was possessed and talking about Satan lives, and they ask her, why did you keep the toaster if it's possessed? Well, the easy answer is it makes good toast. You slap a little butter on there, but you got to get all that burnt off of there. We want ours golden brown. We don't want it burnt to a crisp. Put a little bit of butter on there. Yeah. Of course, none of these stories were real, but if people believe that they were real, Richard didn't care. He's going to back that up. He was on talk shows. Hey, so are all of these stories real? 100% factual. Now, are they real life factual? No, but does that person believe it's factual? 100%. So hey, we'll put it on TV. So he was just trying to shake up the talk show industry. In his words, turn it upside down. With Richard getting all of these stories, he had to start hiring extra producers to help find them. But they said that Jerry Springer was actually a funny guy. And if you watch the talk show, Jerry would always throw in some little jokes. He'd always take his little jabs. So what they were saying was, Jerry, we'll get the stories. You just show your funny side. You know, come out your shell a little bit. And at first, Jerry was a little hesitant, but he eventually caught on to it and he started to open up to the show. Now, as far as the show went, They wanted it to be larger than life. And of course, there's things that I can't show because YouTube is going to be YouTube. But you might see some tatas on here. You might see someone run out here naked. You might see someone doing some wild acrobats and bust their ass. You never know what you were going to see on Jerry Springer. Now, towards the end, we did see that it was kind of repetitive. But in the beginning, it was always wild. And how they hyped up the show for us to make it seem like it was exciting. Whenever they announced Jerry Springer, the stage producer, he would make everyone stand up, and that's where the Jerry to make him seem like he was an actual celebrity and larger than life. This is when the Springer Show started to take off. They started to go over the top. Now, of course, the network didn't like that because it's raunchy and it's pushing the line, but they started getting views. They started going up from 1 million views to 3.4 million, 4 million. And remember, Oprah was at 12 to 14 million. But then these articles started coming out. Talk show host Jerry Springer finds TV gold in trash. So this was different. No one's seen anything like this. But the numbers were there. So of course, the networks are going to back it. Because we know in business, the number one goal of any business is profit. This is Melinda, one of the producers. Now, she's behind the scenes and she's the one that was setting up the shows, and she's talking about it was hectic back then. One thing they used to do with the Springer Show when they started off, it was kind of like bots that are out now. What they would do was double up, have the show air during the daytime and then re-air it at night. So now you're getting 2 times the watches because some people can't watch during the day and then you get the evening one. But behind the scenes, it was always crazy and they're always looking for that next story. She even said that Richard was kind of scary. He would sit behind his desk with just a cigar. As this producer, they had a hotline, so people were calling in, 1-877 Jerry or something of that nature. You call in and you tell your story. But Melinda, she started interviewing people, and this is when she interviewed Toby. Toby came in to be a producer. He just finished up college, and the staff back there, they were the hardest workers. Jerry was just on the screen. Everything went down behind the screen. This gentleman here, his name is Robert, and he's actually a TV critic. And what he's talking about is the perspective of the show from the outside looking in. And he knew how strenuous it was for all of the producers to put these shows together because everything had to be approved by Richard. If Richard didn't like it, then it wasn't going to go on. And their jobs depended on who they could bring on the shows. And Jerry, from what we noticed is we used to think that Jerry was putting this together. Jerry wasn't involved at all. The producers would put it together, send it up to Richard. Richard would approve it, and they would just give Jerry a cue card and then Jerry off the top of the dome. So no one was really thinking about the long-term effects that would come from a show like this. Us fans, we didn't care. We just wanted to see what was next. One of the shows that took Jerry Springer to the next level is when they brought on some Klans members. And the reason this took it to another level is one, because the Klan, they're just stupid anyway, per Jerry Springer's words also. But his family, he's Jewish, and his families were Holocaust survivors. So bringing them onto the show, no one knew how crazy this show would be. And I remember this episode. Now, I watched a rerun. Obviously, I was a kid when the original came out, but I did see the rerun when I was into like my pre-teens. So it was wild to see him on here, and we're initially thinking that this stuff is fake, but these were real members. With the Klans members on stage, they brought this Jewish group out. Now, it was a guy that was, I think, like either the founder or one of the people on the board. He comes out with 2 security guards. But as soon as they come out, they rush over to the Klansmen and they get to brawling. So now we're seeing brawls on television, but this ain't no play brawl. This is between 2 different groups, one hate group and one oppressed group, and they are going at it on stage. So this is when a light popped in Richard's head. Bing! Let's get this money. Fights are what brings the crowd in. And from that moment on, the producer's job was to get a story on here and hype up the cast. Well, I won't even call them cast. Hype up the guests. Have them come out, hype them up behind the scenes, tell them they got to do this. You got to be fired up and get them to brawl, because that's all we were really waiting on. Who are we fooling? Let's be honest. Hi, I'm MoedotJ, and I have to jump in and give this disclaimer. Jerry Springer was a good show that we watched in the early 90s to the mid 2000s. And I have to tell you, I grew up watching Jerry Springer, and that's one reason you come to my show because I try to be as unfiltered as possible. And hey, who didn't love a good Jerry Springer episode where they were throwing hands, beep, 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 so much cursing you couldn't even hear what was going on, seeing the audience reaction. I'm not gonna lie to you. Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. I used to chant it when I was at the house, kitchen table, eating cereal, chanting Jerry, Jerry. You know, you used to watch Jerry Springer. Even in interviews, Jerry was saying, listen, when we bring people out to my talk show and we have them in a confrontational situation, I want them to go after each other. I want them to attack. I want this to be as outlandish as possible. Now, I'm pretty sure they had to sign some kind of waivers or something. If you get your ass whooped or slapped, they'll probably take you to the hospital because they do mention that. But other than that, hey, man, it is what it is. You get a tooth knocked out, good luck. But this is money. This is the 90s. Times were different. You know, you definitely couldn't do this now. But Jerry's even saying, yeah, I want this show to be outrageous. And that's where the ratings and the money comes from. The city of Chicago was even trying to cancel Jerry. They brought him into meetings. They had him up here, hey, don't you think it's too much violence on here? And Jerry's saying it's television. It's nothing more than that. It's just television. It's entertainment. But I agree with that because when we go and watch movies, no one says nothing about that. When I watch cartoons and Daffy Duck is hitting somebody on the head with a hammer or Bugs Bunny is shooting Elmer Fudd out of his shoes, I didn't grow up and think, let me go shoot somebody. That's cool. It's just entertainment. It's television. It's just TV. It's movies. And that's what Jerry is saying. But they were definitely trying to cancel him. Now, Toby's dad, remember, he just got out of college. He graduated late. But his dad was a production manager. So he was actually on television. He was really working. Now, the thing about Toby is he was infatuated with his dad's life. You used to see your dad on TV. He's on the production. So I'm pretty sure he went on the set. But his father, he looked at Toby and said, what you're doing, that isn't TV. That isn't true production. So basically he was down on his son. But this is something different. No one ever seen a show like Jerry Springer. So I see why his dad was the way he was, because he was the traditional producer. But this right here pays the bills. And it's not like he was on stage doing anything wild. He was just hyping up the guests. Once the ratings for Jerry Springer started taking off, people were calling into the hotline. Now, they say it was a Jerry Springer hotline and the Jerry Springer triangle. Basically from Florida to like Mississippi up to Ohio. So it's that country area right in there, that little triangle, were typically the people that were calling into the show. Most people with regular jobs, 9-to-5s, weren't about to go on Jerry Springer, get their ass whooped and go back to work. But they were working so hard, they were staying at the office 24/7 because the phones were ringing off the hook and they needed to produce shows, as many as possible. Here's the actual map of the triangle, the Jerry Springer triangle. From Georgia over to Little Rock, all the way up to Cincinnati, Ohio, because all of these people in here have something in common. And 99% of the guests came from this triangle. Yeah, they're all country, hillbillies, Klansmen, all of the unique characters put into one little triangle. The job of the producer was just that, produce the story. Whatever story gets called in, once the guests get here, they need to amplify it. If you're coming up there and your story is you're cheating on your current girlfriend with your ex, then we gotta hype it up. We gotta get you to tell your ex that you don't love her no more, you're with your new girl, or vice versa. You gotta curse them out. You're basically coaching them on what to say to make it a show. And when you're doing this, you're playing with their mental, because you want to get them so angry that they do what? Make the money. What is making the money on the Springer Show? Get to fighting. So these producers, they were low-key manipulative, but hey, anything for $1. One thing we learned early in life is once you have power, you have the influence. And once you have that influence, you can pretty much shift the narrative any way you want to. And at this time, of course, Oprah was the #1 talk show. So they interview her about her show that's about to drop, one of her movies, Beloved. And then they ask her about Jerry Springer. And she's saying it's trashy, it's not a real talk show. But we all know you don't go to Jerry Springer to actually get help or to get therapy. They weren't helping anybody. They were helping you relieve some stress by allowing you to whoop someone's ass. That's why we watched it. Everyone wasn't getting a book like over on Oprah's book club. Everyone wasn't getting the gift on Jerry Springer. We were getting the gift of laughter. These producers, I'm telling you, working overtime. Well, Toby's sitting at his phone and he gets a call at about 3 a.m. And when he hears this story, he's like, this is perfect. Well, it turns out the story is this man divorced his wife and married this horse, or he had a ceremony at least. And the thing between this and bestiality is the animal, the horse, actually loved him. And they brought a live horse out here. I guess they threw him on a trailer and he was kissing the horse. So everyone in the crowd is looking in disgust. But this is what Jerry had to do to get these ratings. I'm not saying what he did was right, but it put money in his pocket. And with that being said, Jerry's show begins to skyrocket and becomes the #1 show in the world, passing up Oprah, the one that she was calling vulgar and in his own lane. Well, now he was in his lane, shifting gears, hop back in your lane, and now he's in front of you with the #1 show. Jerry was the first and only person to pass up Oprah for the #1 talk show on television. So you can believe that the checks were rolling in. The last story we see, they're actually going to talk about it in part 2, but you hear Toby talking about we're playing with people's psyche. We're putting them on here, we're hyping them up, and we're putting them at that line. Just like cartoons, you better not cross that line, but we're putting them there, and we put the battery in their back. And this story that they're going to talk about in part 2 is a tragic story, because this is when the show became real, and everyone was wondering what's the next move for the Springer Show. All right, there you go. That's the recap for the first part of the 2-part series of Jerry Springer. Let me know, did you ever watch Jerry Springer when you grew up? Or were your parents one of those parents that said, you're not watching that, that's trash television? My parents didn't know because they weren't at home, and my dad would laugh at it anyway. So I used to watch Jerry Springer, and that's where you see my sense of humor comes from when I'm watching TV. Let me know what you think. Tune in tomorrow for episode 2. I'm MoedotJ. If you like Jerry Springer, or if you just like Netflix breakdowns and you thought that I said something that was interesting, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'm out.
Jimmy on the beat, boy.